Lunch period fell upon us quickly, and this usually would be cause for rejoicing. But given that awaited me after school, I much rather preferred that the boredom of education would proceed a little bit longer than normal. Rouge did not agree. "We're at the halfway point," she celebrated, setting her tray down across from me. "I love lunchtime. It reminds me that there's a life out there besides this, you know." I cracked a small smile. "Yeah." She picked up on my attitude almost immediately. "Okay, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "Something has to be wrong." "Says who?" "Says the law of storytelling. Every day's a story, Shadow, and no story's complete without a problem and a solution. So what's the problem?" I was taken slightly aback. "Wow, that's actually pretty deep, Rouge." She waved my compliment on as though there were many more to come. "I try, sweetheart, I try. Now what's up?" I picked up my food nervously. "Sonic wants to fight me." "Again?" She sighed in a tired voice, like she was being forced to watch a rerun of a bad show. "Seriously, Rouge," I insisted. "He said if I didn't fight him, he'd—" Amy walked into the conversation without a care in the world. "Can I sit here?" I put on a smile, despite the fact that my brain was running at 100 miles an hour. "Sure," I invited. She sat next to me and started to eat, oblivious to what I had been talking about prior. Rouge looked at me, then at Amy, and then she raised an eyebrow at me. I only sighed and shook my head at her before going back to my food. But Rouge wasn't about to end our conversation without finding out what I had been about to say. So she did something I didn't expect her to do again for a long time. In one fell swoop, Rouge's hand accidentally flew forward and slapped her milk carton aside at the perfect angle for it to fly straight into my face. I flinched and sputtered as the lukewarm cow juice connected with my eyes. For a few seconds, all I could see and taste was 2% dairy product. I instinctively swatted at my eyes and shouted in shock, "Rouge, what the hell?" She put a hand over her mouth and pretended to look sorry. "Oh, I'm sorry. God, I'm clumsy." Amy hurriedly stood from her seat. I'll go get some napkins," she promised as she ran off towards the cafeteria. Before I had even regained full use of my eyes, Rouge was barking orders. "Quick! What was Sonic going to do if you didn't fight him?" I blinked rapidly, in order to strain a glare at her. "You threw a carton of milk at me for that?" "Hurry!" she said. "Amy's coming back. What did he say he'd do?" "He said he'd tell Amy he loved her," I said, still struggling to wipe milk off of myself. "That's it?" Rouge asked, cocking her head. "Why didn't you say so?" Then a pink blur entered my clouded field of vision. "Here," the figure who must have been Amy said. A pair of soft, delicate hands started to wipe away the whiteness from my face. I turned a light shade of red when the milk was finally gone. "Thanks," I told her, but Rouge was already talking over me. Amy's eyes widened and her cheeks glowed scarlet. You did?" she stammered as she looked over herself for signs of stains. "Where?" And I just skipped a line. Oh. Let me go back. "Amy," she suddenly asked, "I got milk all over your jacket." Amy's eyes widened and her cheeks glowed scarlet. You did?" she stammered as she looked over herself for signs of stains. "Where?" I watched the pair wander off into the distance, Rouge confidently leading and Amy nervously stuttering. It was at that moment that I came to a startling truth. Girls are weird. The end of the school day came sooner than I would have hoped, and by the time I knew it, it was too late. Sonic even gave me a not-so-friendly punch in the arm on his way out the building, just to remind me of the bloody mess that was going to be happening in less than a minute. I wasn't scared of Sonic, but I wasn't in the mood to give or receive any bruises for a while. I reluctantly started for the door, punching my way through and scanning the crowd for Sonic's face. It didn't take me long to locate, but then I saw him. I also saw a circle void of people in front of him. the kind of circle that people cleared when a fight was about to go down. I swallowed and begun my long walk towards the clearing, but I never expected to see who was standing there when I arrived. Amy? I asked, no one particular, my brain reeling from the shock. There, in the center of the ring, stood a very angry-looking Amy Rose. Her tiny hands were clasped together in a pair of fists, and her emerald eyes were aimed at Sonic like knives. The blue hedgehog was watching her with little interest. "Where the hell is Shadow?" he asked her. "Shadow's—" Amy spoke in her normal, quiet voice, and then raised her tone to be heard above the crowd. "This isn't about Shadow." Sonic looked confused. "Yeah, it is." "I know what you told him," she said, "about telling me that you love me." My stomach flipped end over end, but Sonic was unfazed. "What are you talking about?" he snickered, lying through his teeth. Suddenly, Amy walked a little bit closer to him. The blue hedgehog stood a whole head taller than her, but she managed to look him in the eyes. Their green eyes battled an invisible battle as they glared at one another. The pink hedgehog took a deep breath through her nose, and the muscles in her arms visibly tensed. "Get out of my face. Sonic, I once thought I loved you." Amy's bright eyes dimmed, and she looked down at the concrete nervously. The corners of her glasses began to fog up as her irises turned bloodshot. Then she took another deep breath. Her fist moved like lightning as it smashed into Sonic's nose. Blood flew and splashed the gray cement, turning it a putrid crimson. Amy's eyes were like green fire as they flared and flashed with pent-up frustration. She had not slapped him. She had not kicked him in the balls. She had gone and punched him square in the face. I think that deserves a hell yeah. "Go to hell, Sonic the Hedgehog!" she screamed as she stumbled backwards and nearly fell over. There were some gasps of astonishment and a few chuckles from the crowd that had been expecting a fight before they dispersed. Sonic vanished with the flood of people to avoid any further humiliation. I couldn't blame him. I went over to Amy after almost everyone was gone, and the first thing I did when I was close enough to look her in the eye was kiss her. She flustered and turned orange as I pulled away and grinned at her. "That was one hell of a show," I remarked proudly. Amy shrugged sheepishly and stared at the door. "Oh, thank you. I just was a little angry, I guess. Maybe I wasn't going to have to do as much protecting as I thought I would." Anyway, I'm sorry if I sounded like I was stuffed up because I'm kind of sick. And I'm sorry for messing up that one line. I accidentally skipped it. And I had to go back and reread it. So I said the same line twice, but it wasn't a big deal. This chapter was great. I loved how, Amy stood up for herself. It's really brave of her since, she's a girl, and some girls are not tough enough to go up against a guy like Sonic. But technically that's not true. There are a lot of girls in my school who would just, randomly kick somebody in the nuts. And slap anybody. Me personally, I can't go up to a boy and literally do that. I'm someone who doesn't like fights. I don't like starting a fight. I've never been in a fight, so it's kind of scary. Anyway, I hope you like chapter 8. We have one more chapter left, and it's very short, so I might as well get that done. Anyway, bye guys.